So, we are allegedly talking about the iPhone 18, not the 17, which the 18. In the tech world, leaking a product 1 year out is usually a sign of one of two things. Either someone left a prototype in a bar somewhere in Cupertino, or the current roadmap is so incredibly safe that marketing needed to light a flare just to remind us they still have a pulse. And looking at these specific leaks, a smaller dynamic island and a massive battery, it would be very easy to frame this as Apple finally pushing the gas pedal. But that's the surface level take. If you look at the psychology behind these changes, the how and the why, it tells a completely different story. It tells me Apple isn't trying to innovate, they're trying to manage a transition, and they are using your patience as a buffer to buy themselves time. Let's start with the visual headline, which is the shrinking dynamic island. The leaks suggest the iPhone 18 Pro will feature a smaller cutout because Apple is finally moving some of the Face ID components under the display. On paper, this sounds like progress. It sounds like the all-screen dream we've been promised since 2017. But let's pause for a second and look at what's actually happening here. They aren't removing the island. They are just putting it on a diet. This is the classic Apple incrementalism trap, and it's brilliant in a slightly annoying way. The dynamic island isn't just a piece of hardware. For Apple, it is a user interface brand. They spent years building software interactions around that pill shape. If they removed it tomorrow, all that clever UI design becomes instantly useless. So the strategy isn't, let's give them a seamless screen. The strategy is, how do we keep this feature relevant while we figure out the hard engineering that we probably should have finished 3 years ago? It is a compromise disguised as an upgrade, and they are allegedly moving the dot illuminator under the screen, but keeping the infrared camera visible. That is a half measure if I've ever seen one. It signals that the technology for a fully under-display Face ID, something competitors have struggled with and something Apple refuses to ship until it is absolutely perfect, isn't ready. But here's the psychological play that makes it work. By shrinking it slightly, they reset the clock on your complaints. They get credit for listening and improving without actually having to solve the core problem of the cutout for another few years. It's genius, really. They have turned a hardware limitation into a multi-year feature evolution that keeps you upgrading, waiting for the day when the island finally becomes a spec. It's the boiling frog strategy, but for screen cutouts. Then we have the iPhone 18 Pro Max leaks, and this is where the narrative gets really interesting. We are hearing rumors of a 5,200 milliamps battery. Stop and think about that number for a second. That is massive. That is rivaling, and in some cases beating, the huge Android flagships that used to mock the iPhone's endurance. For the last decade, Apple's philosophy was efficiency over capacity. They used smaller batteries and optimized software to get results. It was a point of pride. We don't need big tanks, they said, because our engine is so efficient. Going to a 5,200 milliamps battery isn't just a spec bump. It's a quiet admission that the efficiency game has limits. It suggests that the demand for power driven by AI on-device processing and the relentless appetite of modern apps is outpacing their ability to optimize it away. They can't cheat physics anymore. The leaks even mention that the phone might get slightly thicker to accommodate this power plant. That is a massive strategic shift. The thinness at all costs era is officially dead. Apple is betting that you care more about not hunting for a charger at 4 p.m. than you do about the phone being 0.2 millimeter thinner. And honestly, that's a safe bet. It's a defensive move against battery anxiety, which is arguably the number one pain point for the silent majority of users. Tech enthusiasts online scream about 120 hertz refresh rates and titanium frames. Normal people, they just want their phone to work until bedtime without having to carry a power bank, like it's a necessary medical accessory. Apple is finally surrendering to that reality, effectively admitting that the best way to solve a user problem isn't always the most elegant engineering solution, but sometimes just putting a bigger battery in the box. We also have to talk about the silicon powering this thing because that explains the battery strategy. The rumors point to an A20 Pro chip built on a 2 nanometer process paired with an in-house C2 modem. If you look at the timing here, the competitive picture snaps into focus. Apple moving to their own C2 modem isn't just about better connectivity, it's about cutting the cord on Qualcomm. It's about owning the entire stack. Why does this matter to you? Because when Apple controls the chip, the modem, and the battery logic, they can optimize the device in ways Samsung or Google literally cannot. They don't have to wait for a third-party vendor to fix a power drain bug. This vertical integration is the moat. The dynamic island shrinking, that's the show. The custom silicon and modems, that's the business. That is the engine room where the actual war is being fought. If you've followed this company long enough, this pattern feels incredibly familiar. Remember the transition from Touch ID to Face ID? It wasn't one step. It was years of rumors, patents, and slow rollouts. This feels exactly the same. The leaks point to a full all-glass anniversary model rumored for 2027. That timing is suspicious, isn't it? It implies the iPhone 18 is just the appetizer. The smaller island is the setup for the no island reveal the following year. They are conditioning you to accept the change slowly so the 2027 device feels like magic rather than just a spec bump. It is a masterclass in managing expectations. They are plugging the holes in their armor, battery life, and polishing the visuals just enough to keep the hype train moving, all while saving the one more thing for the anniversary year. So what does this mean for the iPhone 18 Pro? It means Apple is prioritizing reliability over novelty. The silent majority of users don't care about the dynamic island shrinking by 2 millimeters. They don't care about nanometer architecture. They care that their phone lasts all day and unlocks when they look at it. These leaks suggest Apple is finally aligning their product roadmap with the practical, unsexy needs of the average user rather than the aesthetic demands of the tech press. It's not flashy, it's not the revolutionary leap, but a 5,200 milliampere hour battery in an iPhone, that's the end of a complaint we've had for 15 years. And honestly, that's a bigger deal than a slightly smaller pill on your screen. The iPhone 18 isn't the destination, it's the toll booth you have to pass through to get to the future Apple is actually building. Catch you next one. Peace out.